I'm C1.
And I'm C2.
And this is
The Christopher Show.
And today we want to talk about a couple of topics. One of those is obviously the election results. But the other thing that we want to discuss today is calming the temperature down, stopping some of the hostility and the aggression toward each other as Americans, and we'll get into that.
Bringing the unity back to the country.
Exactly. We want to discuss unity. I guess that's really a better way to say it and a more positive way to say it. I like that. So we do want to discuss that. What else did I have up there? We may even talk about Trump and some of his agenda items at the end of it. But let's go ahead and start. We'll jump into the election results.
Yep.
So Trump won.
Yep.
And he won resoundingly, which is what we wanted, which is what we needed. As a nation, we needed it. And Democrats are out there right now lauding it like, oh, you know what? Look at how we respond. But the reality is the media is not responding very well. I see Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, other late-night talk show hosts that are not responding well. One that is responding well is Bill Maher. So props to you, Bill, for actually responding in a very civil kind of way, in a way that exemplifies the way we should be moving, and in a way that matches the energy that's coming from Trump, Kamala, and Joe Biden.
Yeah, coming from the top down. It's a trickle effect that needs to happen.
Very much so. And we'll get into that a little more. But before I jump over to that, what are you seeing on liberal media? I mentioned the outlets that I see, the mainstream media, and I watch that more. But you watch TikTok.
I watch TikTok. I keep my thumb on the pulse there. Instagram Reels, all that stuff. But for the most part, it's a lot of doomsday kind of feel for the liberals on their side kind of thing. They think that, or they believe that they've lost the rights that they didn't have a week ago. They believe that it's the end of the world for them, that for them they're no longer looked at as citizens. But it's not true. There's also the combat to that, though, of there's some LGBT members who are Republican as well. I can't remember their names off the top of my head right now. One of them was like the gay who strayed, though. I can't remember.
What about Robert something,
guy.
right? Robert Smith?
Can't remember his name at the moment, but there's another guy that's been doing it where he's like, hey, it's just one video, but they're all going back to back, where they're like, they're not worried because Trump stood up at the UN saying that homosexuality needed to be decriminalized worldwide. He appointed the first openly gay cabinet member. And he's just not going to restrict the LGBT community and pull back from the rights that they do have, and to their open gay marriages and all that stuff.
He's not going to impact their rights that they have today. He's not taking those away. And I didn't see any of those behaviors in the first round. I didn't see any of those attacks in the first round of his presidency. So we have 4 years that we can reference in respect to that. I do want to say I hate that the liberals, and I mean this about the TikTokers, the Instagrammers, the Facebook people that I see, and whomever else, I hate that they have a doomsday kind of feel to what's happening. I don't think it's a doomsday kind of feel. I don't see abortion rights are not going to be attacked. Gay rights are not going to be attacked. Women's rights are not going to be attacked. If anything, women's rights are going to be protected because now women won't have to worry about going into the men's room or going into the women's room and a man being in there. Or they won't, more importantly, they won't have to worry about women having to compete against men in sports because Trump's going to begin fixing that and changing that policy so that we can make sure that women are protected. They keep talking about protecting women and protecting abortion rights, but women have far more rights than just abortions that they need to worry about. They fought hard to have their own competitions, whether it's the WNBA, whether it's NCAA sports for women across Title IX and everything. I think it's Title IX.
I think so.
But the swimming and all that other stuff, now they don't have to compete against men, or they won't. Let's say that because Trump hasn't implemented that yet, but that is part of his agenda that is coming. I think it needs to happen. I think that while I'm sympathetic to the transgender community, I just think that men should not be, or at least even former men, should not be competing against women because you still have the testosterone bone density advantage that you had growing up.
Yep.
So with that, though, let's talk about, let's get back on topic. And our topic was we want to warm things up.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we unite, we come together. And I know that's easy to say when you're the victor. Mm-hmm. There's grace in defeat, but there's also grace in victory, and being gracious in victory. And so don't get me wrong, I know I talk smack some online in terms of on Instagram, or I'll do a little bit of gaslighting just because I'm guilty of that. Yeah, but for the most part, I do want us to unite and come together. I don't want it to continue to be hostile. I don't want it to continue to be combustible. I don't want us to be on the verge of an internal war for this country. I see uncivil an uncivil war happening. We don't have a physical war, but we absolutely have an online war between conservatives and liberals yelling at each other.
Yep.
I don't know how we calm that.
It's just both sides need to be able to listen and then either agree to disagree or be more understanding of that person's position.
Well, and that's
And
what being
then-
open-minded really is.
Yeah, and then just being able to leave it as is. Don't let it affect who you are, who you hang out with because of that. Do it based off of that person's personality. Are they a good person to you? Are they a good person to the people around you? Do they treat your friends well? Do they treat your family correctly? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and to that point, where does it start? How do we start? I think Kamala, Joe Biden, and Trump have all begun.
Yep.
Trump did it in his victory speech. He was gracious. He said we need to start working on unifying the country again. He said we need to bring people back together. He said success brings unity, and so if we can get success, we'll start to get unity. So he does want to bring the Democrats on board. Trump said it. Then after he said it, Kamala in her concession speech said it. Then after Kamala said it, Joe Biden in his speech inviting President Trump to the White House. So now we have this peaceful transfer of power, and it's becoming peaceful at the top at the very least. And let me say this, it hasn't been peaceful between those three. We've heard Trump calling them names. We've heard them calling Trump names. We've heard fascist Hitler and other things cast at Trump. We've heard Trump, in a similar fashion, though, call Kamala communism, pulling on the left-wing fringe of her party, because there are left-wing people who do want communism.
Yeah, and there's extremes on both sides. There's extreme people on the right who are legitimately racist and homophobic and stuff like that along those lines. And there's people on the other end who, like you said, just mentioned, that are completely communistic in their senses. But I think a majority of the government tries to stay with, not as far radical to either side, try and keep it somewhat moderate.
Yeah, and so I used to say this when I was a kid, that, you have 10% on the left and 10% on the right. And when I say kid, I mean in my 20s. So that are extremist, and then 80% in the middle. That's what it felt like at the very least, 80% in the middle. And some of that's because I grew up post 9/11. 9/11 gave us something to be unified about. But after that, as time has gone on, we haven't had another attack on American soil. So we haven't had a reason to come together. So we're like siblings in a family where we begun fighting. And so now it's more like 20% fringe on the left, 20% fringe on the right, and then middle 60% that are moderate. I'd like to see that moderate segment of our society expand to 70% and then to 80%. But the only way to do that is through understanding and through grace.
Yep.
And let me say this. I have 4 friends that are liberals, and only 4. I can't count any more than that because I don't think that they exist anymore. I think a lot of people unfriended me. I didn't unfriend them. But Colleen, Raul, Patty, and Julian, who after Trump won, they said congratulations. They reached across the aisle. They were like, hey, congratulations. And yeah, they were disappointed that they lost, but they also accept that they're going to exist and they're going to give Trump a shot and see what he does. This is his last term. So let's see what he does. And so they were gracious in defeat. I was gracious in victory. And the reason they were gracious in defeat is 4 years ago when Trump lost, I was gracious. I posted something to my story and said, hey, we've lost. Let's start working toward the next election and figuring this out. And don't get me wrong, I was upset that we lost, and I was vocal about it, and I hated it, and I felt like there were some things that happened that weren't on the up and up in that election. But I said, let's move forward. I can't change the election, and we are not going to change the election. Let's move forward to 2024.
Move forward to 2024, but more importantly, move forward in your own self-development, your own self-growth, increase your pocket size kind of thing, and increase who you are as a person as well, and just continue to self-development. Yeah,
self-improvement kind of stuff. And so, and you know me, this has been me my whole life. As long as you've been alive, I read books and things like that to improve, whether it's my career, 100%. I'll take nerd every day if it increases my income. But my career, my project management certifications, my finance degree, and then after schooling, I continued to read books on self-development for business transformation and other things that fed into improving my status in life and my income. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I mean, to speak to people, if you're upset about the election or if you're not upset about the election, you're happy about the election results, either way, we should all be doing the same thing and moving forward and figuring out how to educate ourselves more so that we increase our income. I can't say enough about education. I preach this to you all the time.
And look toward the positivity of what's to come as well, not just the negativity. Look at what's going to happen. Vladimir Putin already reached out to Trump basically saying, hey, I look forward to being able to negotiate and put an end to the Ukraine-Russia war. Zelensky already got on the phone with Trump and Elon. Hamas already basically called for an end to the war. I think Trump spoke to the Israeli prime minister as well, saying by the time I reach that office, I want you to have ended the war with Hamas.
Well, and then the caravans that were coming up from Central America and South America
Mexico
peeled off. They're like, oh,
Well,
shit.
It's not just that; it's that Mexico basically said no, go back. And
I didn't know that. So that's
I
good
believe
news.
that to be true. I could be wrong, but I believe that it was basically Mexico said, "Hey, no, you're not doing that no more."
Oh, good. So there are some things that are already happening just by the notion, and this is what I'd always said, by the notion that Trump has taken office, he's won the election, you're seeing world leaders get in line. This is why you cannot have a feeble-minded individual in the presidential position. It's because the world will take advantage of it and exploit it like they have for the last 4 years. With all due respect to Biden, super nice guy, but he hasn't spoken to the American public enough. There's no transparency in government for the last 4 years.
I mean, he held his first White House press conference back in, I think, September or October. Like his first one in the 4 years. He had never actually spoken.
Oh, that's right. I did hear that.
Yeah.
So to go back to Biden, though, and what I was saying there is, when you have someone in that position, the world is going to see that, and they're going the bad people in the world. Bad people exist. It's just the nature of the business. And they're going to exploit that situation. And that's what they did during his 4-year term. You look at Ukraine and Russia with Putin and Zelensky. You look at Israel right now with the Hamas attack on October 7th of last year. And then you look at China with Taiwan, and China in the Southeast Asia region that we don't hear about often, because we hear so much about Ukraine and Israel, but we don't hear about China and the Southeast Pacific either. Or Southeast Asia, rather. But then you also have the wars in Africa as well. And so they get out of hand. And now look at Iran and the way they were being bold. They tried to assassinate Trump pre-election because they didn't want him to win. So you have to have a strong individual in that position. Obama was strong. I might not have liked his policies. But like you were saying, I improved myself, increased my income, and educated myself so that I could make more money, because I don't care who's president as long as I'm able to continue improving my life. And that is the American dream.
Yep.
That's the American dream that is still within reach. So we wanted to talk about calming the temperature. Where does that start? How do we start? It starts at the top. It starts with the conversations Trump, Kamala, and Biden had where they said, hey, we need to calm the temperature. All of them repeated the same phrase, which makes me think that they're all in agreement. I mean, they've all talked to each other. Kamala talked to Trump on the phone. Biden talked to Trump on the phone. Biden invited Trump to the White House. So I think we finally have the leadership of both sides coming together to say, hey, we do need to calm this down before we divide the U.S. And then that message from them needs to trickle down to you and me and the general population. How does it get there? There's a phrase, or there's a word called the medium, which is the vehicle to get the information from them to us, and that has been mainstream media. I have said this time and again, mainstream media is legitimately the real threat to democracy because they continue to polarize for profits, and I'm tired of seeing it.
Yeah, they always post the negative stories that's going to get more viewership, more attention, rather than the positive, uplifting stories, because that's not what drives their market up. It doesn't make money in their bank.
Yeah, they sensationalize, they lie, they outright lie.
They'd rather show the one dead puppy under the bridge rather than the 12 puppies that got saved off the train.
Yeah, I don't know where you got that analogy.
It's just an analogy, but they'd rather show
Was it on TikTok?
No, but it's just like it shows what they'd rather show is the negativity
I agree.
rather than the positivity.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And the positivity stuff, and this goes back to even me doing reality TV for a short time when I was an extra in some of those things. I went on trying to portray a Southern gentleman on a who wants to date a millionaire or something like that, like the one with Patty Stanger.
I don't know.
And so anyway, I went on there. I'm trying to be a gentleman the whole freaking thing. And this is, you know how fit I am. And apparently they had gone and checked everything out on me like they always do. And they looked and saw how fit I was. And so I get on the show, and even though I'm saying these Southern gentlemanly things about how to treat women, they go, well, we want to see what's under the hood. Can you take that shirt off? And I'm like, I really don't want to be this guy. I'm like, no, I'm okay. They're like, no, go ahead and take the shirt off. And so they keep prodding me. And finally, not going to lie, they send Candace out, and she's like, I'll unbutton your shirt. And I'm like, okay. But all the same, that being said, it's exactly what they did too. They took the sensationalistic part. They took the part that wasn't wholesome, and they pushed that message forward. So back to how do we get the message from Trump, Biden, and Kamala down to you and me? It's through the mainstream media. Mainstream media needs to stop being a threat to democracy. This goes for the social media outlets as well. Actually, Trump is already talking about Section 230 and adjusting that to make it more difficult for one political party to collude with the social media outlets to manipulate elections.
Yep.
So he's already looking into that. And since we own the House and the Senate, that's going to come to fruition. And I know that they're going to do it. But I also know Democrats want it too.
Yeah.
That is one policy we talk about uniting. That is one they can reach across the aisle on.
The one thing I would like to see more in the House and the Senate is, I think I heard Trump talk about it maybe, but just pushing forward one bill at a time. Don't stack pack a million different things into a bill so that it doesn't get approved, but now you're getting your way on this, but they're getting their way on that. Just one thing at a time. Just go 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's a little difficult, and don't get me wrong, that's a generational thing. We've wanted that as well, like bill by bill, because they do stack pack a lot of things into each bill, and then you don't even know what all you're passing. That's like people talk about the bill that was supposed to go across for illegal immigration last year. Well, that also had amnesty for 1.8 to 2 million illegal immigrants every year, and other provisions in there that more money to Ukraine. Like they were literally smuggling other stuff into that bill to get it to pass, and that's why Republicans said, no, this isn't going to pass. They wanted to call it bipartisan. So the mainstream media, again, we're talking about the people that harm us. Mainstream media put it out there as, oh, Republicans are anti-immigration. They are anti-stopping immigration. They don't want to stop immigration because they had the opportunity. No, they had the opportunity, but they also had the opportunity to do other things. So you're looking at the net of what's in that bill. Yep. It was never bipartisan. Yes, a Republican was there to help write it. But by the time it got to the rest of the Republicans, they're like, nope, definitely not. We're not passing this. And so then word spread like wildfire, and all of a sudden the next thing you know. So we have the mainstream media and social media outlets that are in the way of us uniting, which means we need to break through them. And we break through them by putting laws and regulations and penalizing them for what they've done in place. And then the other people that we have a problem with right now are the governors that are trying to be like resistant to Trump already. He hasn't taken office, but they're going to create a problem. And I know Republican governors did this when Biden took office. But governors have to stop doing that and start looking for where is the common ground? What can we work on?
Yeah.
But Gavin Newsom's already gone off the frickin' deep end, and he's all of a sudden trying to make a stamp, and I know why. He wants to run in 2028.
That would make sense.
He's trying to make a strong stand for Democrat values, but at the same time, you have to be willing to compromise with Trump, especially when Trump talks about getting the water supply to the rest of California from Northern California. That's the stuff you want to do.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, with that, mainstream media absolutely needs to be fixed.
Yep.
What else do we have that we wanted to talk about? Do you recall? I mean, I think that was the big one.
That covers all of it.
So, a few things. Since I'm done with that topic and getting them out of the way, let's bring the country together and try to figure out a way to reach across the aisle. Yep. But the other thing is, let's talk about Trump's policies that he's doing. He's already doing the concealed carry. If you have it in one state, it will be transmissible across state lines, so that applies to all states.
Okay.
So he's looking at federalizing that, which it should be, because the Second Amendment is a federal right. He's looking at the protection of freedom of speech, which is the Section 230 that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And he's looking to get illegal immigration. Like I said, they've already started to stop the caravan, so we have some good things coming up.
Yeah.
But with that, what else did we have? I think that's it.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll wrap things up today then. I'm C1.
And I'm C2.
And this is
The Christopher Show.
Thank you for watching.